So, daring don't. Daring, don't do it. Daring, do not do it. She's real now, which means my priceless artifacts are in danger. Some people weren't a fan of this new development. Brony Curious said the whole idea was utterly stupid, and he, along with Digibrony, believed that you could have told this story with a Spitfire, someone decidedly real that Rainbow looks up to. You didn't need to make a fictitious character real. Shadowfire Pwn 3 disagrees with the notion that this revelation is world-breaking. In fact, he finds it to be world-building. He says that in a world filled with magic, what are the chances of only the main six being the ones going on epic adventures? As for me, I wasn't shocked. Even though I'm the type to never look at spoilers of any kind, I instead began thinking, was Daring Do ever shown to be not real? Twilight and Rainbow Dash exclaim, AK Yearling is Daring Do! But they never seem perplexed that Daring Do is a real pony. Like, never. She's never referred to explicitly as a fictional character. There's only really one point where that almost happens. Twilight says, the real Daring Do and the real Cavaleron! My mind is officially blown. Now, is her mind blown because she's standing so close to her favourite real-life action hero, or because she's standing near ponies she thought were purely fictional? You couldn't definitively say. So maybe Daring Do was already known to be real, but she was just really hard to get in contact with because she's so mysterious. And at the end of the episode, there's no talk of keeping Daring Do a secret or anything, so it would make sense to say that the cat was never in the bag to begin with. But now that opens up an entire can of spaghetti. Daring is real, her deadly adventures are real, and every pony knows about them. Why hasn't any pony tried to help? And I mean you, ANY Pony, where were you, huh?
So she can do better.
If she's been saving the world from Aoizotl all by herself without help countable times, then why hasn't she got herself a stained glass window in the Canterlot Royal Palace for being super awesome? Well, I can think of a reason. Daring Do isn't saving the world. In the grand scheme of things, we don't know much about Daring. We've seen two stories. One where Daring steals the Sapphire Stone to stop Aoizotl having it. I mean, he says the world will suffer mightily, but how? And this one, where Daring stops Aoizotl again by destroying the temple that will call upon 800 years of scorching heat or whatever. 800 years of scorching heat? What does that mean? 800 years worth of heat in one go? A spell that stops time in the general sky area for 800 years? We don't know, so we can assume it's not too big of a deal, and Celestia would probably not need to know about it. We could also assume it's certainly a very big deal, and if Daring failed, the world would be doomed. But there's just not enough information to know one way or the other. So I choose to believe that Daring Do does daring deeds, that are small fry compared to what the main six have accomplished. On another note, I doubt Celestia would know what was happening anyway. We've already seen that she needs to be informed about events by messenger ponies and the like, and she can't tell the future. If Daring didn't want help, she wouldn't tell anybody, and nobody would know until she finished her book. So yeah, Daring Do is real, she's always been real, and every pony has always known she's been real. One thing I have to mention that almost throws a spanner in my argument is a point Blazedrag made in his video, that Rainbow's plan to help speed up the book writing process is to go find AK Yearling, not to find and help Daring Do finish her quest. But if you assume the book writing process of AK isn't common knowledge, there's no way Rainbow Dash or Twilight would know when and how AK Yearling writes her novels. They probably assume Daring has her adventures, and then passes on the story to Yearling to make into a novel. Like before, you can assume the opposite with just as much of an argument because of a lack of information. I'm simply walking the road that confirms my headcanon. Now on to Rainbow Dash. I thought her fangirling in this episode was too cute for words, but I'm saying words right now, so I guess I'm a liar. Calopsic Brony thought that Dash's fangirling was excessive and was just embarrassing, and Biter, in his written review, says that it makes her come across as a bit of a 5-year-old. But I beg to differ with an unquenchable quinch. Look at this face. Look at this face. Look at all of these faces. Put all of these faces together to make one super face. Now, how can you possibly say that this is embarrassing? Dr. Wolf agrees that some of the fangirly moments she had were an interesting side of her character that we don't get to see too often, although he and Brony Curious say that at some points it feels like her character was being altered to suit the conflict. I can see where they're coming from, but to me I think it helps illustrate the moral of not putting people up on a pedestal because you forget your own worth. In order for that moral to resonate, Rainbow Dash needed to be shown to change for the worse. She lost her confidence in herself because she was in the presence of someone who she put so much higher than herself. But in the end she's just a regular super ultra extreme awesome amazing pony like Rainbow Dash. The only thing I'll say is that the whole conflict went way too quickly. Rainbow was depressed, and a scene later, she was more confident than she had been earlier. Speaking of the moral, it was great. Dr. Wolf and Digibrony both thought that it was very relatable, and Whammy Analysis said something interesting that I'd like to paraphrase. We've all been in that position where we perceive someone is better than us, and then we try to emulate that person. But we'll find that we get frustrated, or just fail, because we're always trying to compare ourselves to our idols and we get discouraged. Anyway, the plot, is it good? Well, it depends on the angle you're viewing it from. If you could get over the fact that Daring Do is now real, like I did, you probably thought it was pretty fun. The jokes were hilarious, the Twidash nerd-off was so real it gave me that feeling that they know. I mean, they knew before, but now it feels like they really know. And the action scenes were brilliantly choreographed. Although, as with what Dr. Wolf said, I felt the ending was rushed a little. All the exposition about the 800 years of scorching heat, Daring being captured, Daring escaping, and the whole temple crumbling to the ground only took up a few minutes at the end. Dr. Wolf said there was no time for tension to build, and the scenes changed too quickly. Mastercode 77 also mentioned the fact that Daring Do's acceptance of Dash's help was a little sudden as well. Which brings me on to another point. Daring Do should have had a little time dedicated to her character. Mastercode 77 and Dr. Wolf both proposed the idea of a flashback of some sort, to explain or at least shed a little light on why Daring works alone. It would have been a nice bonding moment between Do and Dash, and would help smooth the transition from "Scram kid, I work alone" to "I guess getting help is pretty good after all." The pacing was done better in Read It and Weep, because when Rainbow is forced out of the hospital, we're left on a cliffhanger. We know that Daring will probably survive, but how? It's time enough for tension to build, so that we feel similar relief to Rainbow when she finally gets her hands on the book and finishes the story. Here, it just happens all too quickly, and to be honest, I don't know how they could really make it better with the way it was set up. On an unrelated note, why is Daring's cottage so small? I mean, she steals priceless artifacts, and I assume she either sells them or puts them in museums, but even if she gets no money from that, she still writes a popular series of books, and gets royalties for Daring Do themed merchandise that I assume exists. She should be rich. She should be rolling in it. Why is she living in this dinky little cottage in the middle of nowhere? I mean, you could say that's just a temporary house, or it's not where she actually lives, but Twilight managed to find out her address rather easily. Not to mention Cavaleron and his cronies. It just seems weird to me that she wouldn't have a secret base or something. You could argue that she uses it as her home, so as not to draw attention to herself. Don't mind me, I'm just an introverted writer living in the woods. No secret treasures here. But that doesn't make sense, because if a villainous gang wanted information on where to find Daring Do, they would interrogate A.K. Yearling, since she's the only pony who is known to know Daring Do. Oh man, I don't even know where I am anymore. Am I bad at structuring videos? One last thing to mention, the journal. ANY Pony said exactly what I would have in his first impressions video. It was handled well, it was smooth, and it felt natural, like Rainbow Dash was really writing about what happened during her adventures. Drowning in Horseshoes says that the journal entries work better than the letters to Celestia, because the format allows for more varied morals that don't necessarily have to relate so heavily to the major character flaw of the pony writing them down. And I'm so glad they didn't start off with a compulsory Dear Diary, because it would have been contrived, and I never liked Dear Princess Celestia anyway. I don't know, it's that same feeling I get about the beginning of the opening song. I tolerate it, but I wouldn't be sad if it was gone. And that's it. I made an analysis. Or a review posing as an analysis, or neither. Subscribe if you want to see more of these. I'll be doing them throughout the season from now. And for my old subscribers, don't worry, I have not stopped doing compilations. They're gonna be the thing I do when the season is over, so if you hate this video, just ignore any future installments because they're pretty much going to be the same rubbish. Also, what do you think of the name? Analysis Assemblage. See, it's because I had this idea of assembling all the differing opinions of as many brony analysts as I could and threading them into my own analysis. So it would be like a compilation of analysis, see? So it would kind of make sense to put it on my channel. I felt it was like